Lyn. Someone who seemed like a pillar of support, a sister by blood, always there to protect. Yet hidden behind those eyes was a shocking secret feelings for Yuri, the very man her younger sister loved with all her heart. Tieu, innocent and devoted, placed all her trust in love, never realizing that her happiness was being threatened not only by the scheming stares in the company, but also by the betrayal of her own flesh and blood. A sister, a family member quietly stepping across the fragile line between kinship and forbidden love. And the bitterness didn't end there. When the cruel truth of the past slowly surfaced, Tutu discovered the devastating reality. The very person who destroyed her family, who caused her father's death, and left her mother in misery, was none other than Yuri's mother. The man she loved carried within him the shadow of a feud that began long before them. Love can overcome many things, but can it survive betrayal from family itself? Can it survive the scars of vengeance passed down from the previous generation? And does Tutu have the courage to choose between family and love, between blood and heart? Today's story will lead you into tears, bitter schemes, and a tragedy in which anyone might see a reflection of themselves. Stay with us until the end, because a twist of fate is waiting just ahead. The story begins in the hustle of a busy office, where Yuri, a young, talented, and handsome director, has slowly become the center of attention. Whispers, subtle glances, everything seems to circle around him. Lyn, the newly hired secretary, is the one who works closest to him every day. But what no one knows is that Tutu, Lyn's younger sister, is deeply in love with Yuri. And from this point, a silent yet intense love triangle begins to take shape. The office atmosphere no longer revolves only around work. Trang, a close colleague, happens to notice Lyn's unusual interest in Yuri. Half joking, half serious, Trang teases Yuri is kind and brilliant. It's no wonder Lyn might notice him. Though her words sound casual, there's a hint of truth underneath. Lyn only smiles faintly without denying it. But what makes things even more complicated is that Trang knows Yuri's girlfriend is none other than Tutu, Lyn's own sister. This is no longer a simple romance. It's a tangled web of family and love. Lyn, who started out as just a new employee, has suddenly become someone who could come between her sister and the man she loves. Her silence, her faint smile only deepen the suspicion that she may be hiding something she cannot admit. As if that weren't enough, Yuri's mother suddenly shows up at the office, making things even more complicated. Everyone is surprised when she begins asking Lyn personal questions, probing about her background, subtly finding out if she has a boyfriend. What seemed like casual conversation carries an undercurrent of calculation. Naive and inexperienced Lyn innocently lets slip that she's still single, something Yuri's mother immediately takes note of. Tension rises further when Yuri's mother confronts her son directly. She scolds him for not telling her about hiring Lyn, but softens once she learns that Lyn is the daughter of Mrs. Lan, a name she has heard before. In her voice and her eyes, there's a silent weighing, as if she's running numbers in her mind about Yuri's future. Meanwhile, Tutu remains blissfully unaware. She throws herself into work, completely trusting the love Yuri gives her. To Tutu, this love is her anchor, her comfort after a childhood filled with pain. But just as she feels safest, a storm begins to form. Lyn is becoming more trusted by Yuri at work, and that closeness is hard to ignore. The first crack appears when Trang hints to Tieu that Lin may be getting too close to Uri. At first, Tieu laughs it off, thinking it's just a casual remark, but deep down, she can't fully dismiss it. After all, Lin is not just Yuri's co-worker, she's her sister. That fleeting feeling of unease is enough to plant a seed of doubt, one that will grow into conflict later on. And so in that small office, 3 people with 3 different roles step into a game of fate. This love triangle doesn't start with a dramatic confession, but with stolen glances, offhand remarks, and the unexpected appearance of a mother carrying the weight of the past. As the secrets within the company slowly unfold, one thing becomes clear. This is only the beginning of a family tragedy where love, pride, and the ghosts of the past will inevitably collide. Not long after Yuri's mother met privately with an old acquaintance, Mr. Tuan. During their talk, she revealed her visit to Tutu's home. She confessed that when she had suggested a marriage between Uri and Tutu, Mrs. Lan had fiercely rejected the idea, even forcing her to leave. The insult ignited a quiet resentment in Yuri's mother's heart. It was in this conversation that she shared her plan. If Uri could not marry Tutu, then he would marry Lin instead. To her, as long as one of Mrs. Lan's daughters married her son, the old feud between their families could be softened. Mr. Tuan nodded in agreement, calling it a clever move. In Yuri's mother's eyes, Lin was no longer just a secretary. She was a pawn in a larger game of revenge and reconciliation. For her, Yuri's marriage was not about love, but about securing influence and burying past mistakes. And if Yuri married Lin, she believed Mrs. Lan would have no choice but to let go of old grievances. Meanwhile, Lin remained unaware that she had become the centerpiece of this scheme. To her, Yuri's trust and workload were simply chances to prove herself. But the unusual praise and lingering glances from Yuri's mother sparked whispers in the office. Some colleagues murmured, "Do you think she wants Lin to be her daughter-in-law?" The word spread quickly, filling the workplace with suspicion. Tieu, still blind to the storm, continued to believe her love with Uri was pure and unshakable. Yet piece by piece, through office gossip, co-workers' hints, and her future mother-in-law's scrutiny, shadows began to fall over her relationship. The climax of this chapter comes as Yuri's mother leaves the office, turning back to deliver a loaded remark to her son. "You should pay close attention to Lin. She's a good girl, and from Mrs. Lan's family. That gives me peace of mind." To Uri, those words weren't advice, they were an unspoken command. And from that moment, he found himself trapped between 2 worlds, his true love for Tutu and his mother's calculated plan to reshape his future. Uri's mother's arrival marked the beginning of the second act, where family schemes and buried grudges intertwine with what once seemed like innocent love. The tragedy was no longer distant. It was now unfolding with every glance, every whisper, every decision. If at the office, Yuri's mother had only shown suspicion through her glances and hidden words at home, the conflict exploded when Tutu finally heard the painful truth from her own mother. One quiet afternoon in their small house, Tutu's mother sat in silence, her eyes heavy with grief and resentment. Slowly, she began to speak. Years ago, their family had owned a company called Thien Truong, proudly run by Tutu's father. It had been the family's pride, their secure place in society. But that pride didn't last. A rival company, along with Uri's mother, directly involved, used every dirty trick to bring Tieu down. She not only cheated in business, but secretly formed alliances with greedy partners, pushing the company into bankruptcy. Disaster followed disaster. The family was torn apart, left in ruin. In the chaos, Tieu was even separated from her mother for a long time, forced to grow up in loneliness and hardship. As her mother spoke, tears streamed down her face. Her trembling voice carried not just sorrow, but burning anger. It was Uri's mother who destroyed our family, who made you live like an orphan for all those years. Tieu froze, her heart breaking. The man she loved with all her soul was the son of the very woman who had ruined her family. Shock consumed her. She thought of Uri's gentle eyes, his promises for their future. All of it was real, sincere. But now, every memory cut her like a blade. She wanted to deny it, yet her mother's story was full of undeniable detail. The fact that Uri's mother had recognized her during their first meeting and firmly rejected her only made the truth more bitter. Her mother's voice grew firm, almost harsh. "I will never let you marry into such a cruel family. No matter how much you love Uri, you will never be happy with a mother-in-law like her. Wake up, my daughter." Those words pierced Tieu's heart like knives. She felt torn apart between her love for Uri, her loyalty to her mother, and her hatred toward a merciless fate. Meanwhile, Uri remained completely unaware. He worked tirelessly, loved Tieu with all his heart, and believed that love alone would be enough. He didn't know that his own mother had planted the seeds of hatred that now threatened to destroy their relationship. The situation grew even darker when Tieu's mother revealed everything she had hidden for years. She told her daughter how Uri's mother had pushed their family into ruin, how she herself had been left powerless, unable to fight back after the company collapsed. Because of their greed, she said bitterly, "You lost your father. You were torn from me, and you suffered alone for years. I will not let you repeat that tragedy." Tieu buried her face in her mother's lap, sobbing uncontrollably. She understood the cruel truth. If she stayed with Uri, she would go against her mother's wishes and tie herself to the family who had destroyed her own. But if she left Uri, her heart would be scarred forever. The question tortured her. Could there be some mistake? Could this really be true? But the evidence her mother gave was undeniable. The tragedy was clear. A love that seemed so strong now stood on the edge of collapse. The wounds of the past were no longer just history, they had risen again, becoming an unbreakable wall, blocking the happiness of the next generation. And it was Tieu, fragile, but full of love, who would bear the greatest pain of all. After learning the truth from her mother, Tieu lived through heavy, painful days torn between love and duty. She avoided Uri, stopped reaching out, and no longer smiled the way she used to. Uri quickly noticed the change. Worried, he went to her home, but the sadness in her eyes and her mother's coldness left him consumed by doubt. He couldn't understand why the love that once bonded them was now covered in a thick fog. Tieu, trapped in her torment, chose silence. She didn't want Uri to suffer, but she also couldn't go against her mother's wishes. To her, Uri was both the man she deeply loved and the son of the enemy who had destroyed her family. Many times, she wanted to explain, to confess everything, but her throat tightened and the words would not come out. Meanwhile, Lynn, the sister Uri, trusted at work, was becoming the center of gossip. Uri's mother's special attention to Lynn sparked whispers among colleagues. Maybe Lynn is the daughter-in-law she really wants. Those words eventually reached Tieu, crushing her even more. She feared losing Uri, not only to the past, but also to her own sister. Uri tried desperately to uncover the truth, but both mothers stood in his way. His mother pushed him toward Lynn, insisting that she was the safe choice to mend old wounds between the families. Tieu's mother firmly refused to let her daughter enter the home of the woman who had ruined them. Each mother, scarred by her own past, pulled them apart with hidden agendas and unresolved hatred. Every meeting between Uri and Tieu ended in tears and silence. Uri held her hand, promising to fight for their love, to uncover the truth, to protect what they had. But Tieu only shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. She loved him, but she couldn't betray her mother. She wanted to be strong, yet the wounds of the past were too deep, leaving her paralyzed. As past and present collided, love became a cruel game of fate. Tutu, torn by grief, chose to step back in obedience to her mother. Uri, once proud and confident, now stood lost, forced to choose between love and family peace. And Lynn, once a mere bystander, emerged as the pivotal figure who could change everything. The ending unfolded in heartbreak. No reunion, no warm embrace, only silent tears, footsteps growing distant, and a question left hanging in the air. Can love ever overcome the hatred of the past? The love triangle remained unfinished. Each heart carried its own wound, its own pain, and a choice that could never be whole.
Linh kẻ tận chừng và chỗ dựa, là người thân ruột thịt, luôn ở bên cạnh bảo vệ, nhưng đằng sâu trong ánh mắt ấy lại giấu kín một bí mật đậm sâu. Tình cảm dành cho Uzi và con nó chính là lá ruột của mình yêu thương lòng. Tình yêu không phải ngây thơ và bạo lực, đặt cho niềm tin vào tình yêu. Đâu ai biết tình yêu ấy đang dần từng bị đe dọa, không chỉ bởi những ánh mắt đầy bản tính nơi công ty mà còn bởi chính máu mủ ruột già trong gia đình. Một người chị, một người thân lại thầm lặng bước qua ranh giới mong manh giữa tình thân và tình yêu. Và cay đắng hơn, sóng gió này không chỉ đến từ người chị. Khi sự thật vào phố phố vàng bị phơi bày, Tiêu mới đau đớn nhận ra kẻ từng phá nát gia đình mình khiến cha mất